It's
Hello.
Beth and Paul with Shed Show Talk. Are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Welcome back to our talk series about human consciousness and all the intersections between AI, aliens, and humanity. Are you ready for another conversation?
Sure am.
Hey, if people are tracking our conversation on their social media, do you have any hashtags or anything like that you'd like to use, or any tags?
I'm fine with just if there anybody's interested in my channel, just check out my channel. Took out Shed Show Talks, of course, and I guess my blog is The Outer Light. So
Okay, and you have a blog called theouterlight.com?
it's called The Outer Light. It's just a YouTube channel. So if you type The Outer Light into YouTube, you'll get a YouTube there with looks like I guess a sun and a moon, and then that's pretty much me.
You're the sun and the moon. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Oh, that's a pretty good resume, actually.
Hey Ed, Paul here, and your channels are The Outer Dark, The Outer Light,
Yep.
and
Esoteric Detective.
Esoteric Detective.
Yep.
We'll put a link to that down in the description, guys.
Yep.
Awesome.
Because as humans, we're banding together and we're trying to promote each other's conversation in YouTube channels because now we're dealing with AI channels. Have you guys actually seen the YouTube channels? Good Mythical Morning did an episode on artificial intelligence YouTube channels. Some of them have 2 million plus subs.
I know, it's crazy. Sometimes
Yeah.
when I go out there and I listen to these channels and I hear a computer voice and it's like, what on earth? And then these computers profess these amazing things
Yeah.
and I don't know what to make of it. And at that point, I switch off usually. But Ed, didn't you start one of your channels with a computer voice?
I had a computer voice early on, but I used to write all the scripts for the computer.
Oh wow!
So there was still a human behind it. But it'll be interesting to see in the future of entertainment if you do have these AIs, and it does come to that sense where you have AI smarter than humans, if they're just creating, a million YouTube channels that has this can edit a video literally and put all the pieces of the puzzle together from the internet in like a couple of moments. If I might be out of a job then.
That's frightening to think of that, and we may not be that far away from that becoming a reality.
No, how many years would you say that's off? Like, how many years until that could be a reality of where the dinosaurs turning into coal and diamonds?
In the next 10, 20 years?
Okay, what about you, Ed? Do you think there's a timeline on that?
Yeah, I think I'd agree with Paul on that. But mind you, you don't really need true artificial intelligence to really do it. If you're doing top 5 lists, for example, if you had some program or server set up that just went around other top 5 lists, that are written on the internet in articles, and it just scanned through them and literally rewrote the top 5 lists and put them into a different order. They used to have something on WordPress, which was a plugin which would rewrite articles and then repost them onto like a robot blog.
Yes, I recall.
And
Yeah.
the technology wasn't there yet. So when you reread the article, there was like the words weren't in the right arrangement or things like that. But with the onset of stuff like Watson that won Jeopardy, which was an AI that won Jeopardy a few years ago and just left all the Jeopardy champions in the dust, when that technology filters in into apps and things like that, you might find a lot of the internet is like things that look like they're written by people. You really can't tell the difference, but they're just a rearrangement of all these other articles, and
Yeah.
they in essence they do become new content because there would be just like such an arrangement there, and then they can do all the video editing, pull in all the pictures,
Makes sense.
have a perfect human voice in it, that you really can't tell it's a robot anymore. And at that stage, if they can turn that out in 30 seconds, then a lot of people really will be out of a job.
Well, and it's actually something I see a lot in our Twitter feed at Shed Show Talk. And one of the things I follow are a lot of AI blogs, and they're talking about imminent threats. I know Dr. Stephen Hawking and others have called for an international government just to deal with the AI threat to the middle class and others, because they think within 30 years the entire middle class will be gone. And so just imagine a world where you have no middle class. And so in the meantime, you have countries around the world, even Canada, proposed a living wage just to pay people for being alive so that when economic changes come in sweeping fashion, you don't have absolute global anarchy. Have you heard any of that? How about you, Paul?
You know, I have, and honestly, I mean, when we look at the world we live in today,
Yeah.
and we're talking about anarchy and money, I really do believe that in some of the most advanced countries in the world, we also live among some of the poorest, and we walk by them on the streets almost every single day. And I am kind of I guess, a socialist in this manner, because I believe in creating a minimum standard for all humans across the earth. But in order to do that, there would have to be collaboration on a worldwide scale with all of the governments, and certain things would have to be price fixed, so you would have to eliminate inflation. But here's what I do know. I certainly know from an economic standpoint that the finances of the world don't work for the people that live within it. Even in the most advanced countries, we're all in debt. We all have huge amounts of debt that we're running around trying to find the next dollar, pound, euro, whatever currency it is you
Bitcoin.
use, yen, to be able to pay it. And it doesn't work for our governments because they're in tremendous debt. When you actually look at some of the leading countries in the world, their debt levels are just out of control. America's is climbing every day, and it's out of control. And that's because the monetary system doesn't work. And what, as humans, do we do? If your vehicle doesn't work in your driveway, or your door doesn't open on your house, or the light doesn't turn on, you fix it. You change the light bulb, you take the car to the mechanics, and we as humans are not doing that. We're just leading ourselves down this path of financial oblivion because it's got to end somewhere. And therefore, I believe we need collaboration on a world scale to come together as a world, fix certain things, the very basic raw materials, so that those companies can make money under that price fixing agreement, eliminate the debt that we're all living under, and give this minimum living wage. What does it cost you to have a roof over your head and to purchase your shopping? And then if you want more than that, you can go out and work. So they're still creating that desire, the fear that I haven't got as much as what my neighbor has, so therefore I need to go out and work. But everybody as a basic should get that living wage, whether you're in work or you're not in work. And if you fix those basic fundamentals, and it really would take worldwide collaboration. And let's face it, the world have never collaborated on anything in the
Yeah,
past.
I was just gonna say, I like the ideal, but I always have like that principle. Can you get along with your brother, your sister, your mother, your father? If you have peace there, then perhaps you could consider your neighborhood. If you have total peace there, then perhaps you could consider your city, then your province or state, then your country, and then other countries. And I believe that until people can actually manage their relationships on the horizontal level, that the idea of world government is actually not realistic.
Well, if you want to talk about a hive mind,
Yes.
here,
Our topic today, by the way, you guys, I know we're jumping around, but it's because Ed is so cool to talk to. But the topic for today is, are we individual or are we a hive? We're going to ask that question about artificial intelligence and aliens. We'll do a round table after Paul here.
talking directly about hive and money. If there is ever a hive that connects the human race so intricately, it would be money, because it is the
Currency.
motivator
Yeah.
of the human race. Without money, we wouldn't have made a book or a vehicle or the spaceships that take us off into space, because without that means being there, it would have never have been there before.
Are you saying that people wouldn't create without monetization?
I'm saying that we would have created, but we wouldn't have created in such a way. We would be back to the trade scale where, you know, I'm going to come and rub your back and you come and lay my lawn.
That didn't sound, I don't think, the way you intended it.
Well, you know, it's like for like. I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to give
barter.
you a chicken.
You're talking about the barter
I'm
system.
going to give you a chicken and you're going to give me a cow. That's
Wow.
a great deal, huh?
That's a great deal for you. Yeah.
And that there is the limits of control. And what money has allowed the human race to do is it's allowed our elites to control us.
Oh.
But
Okay.
at the same time, it's allowed us to get to a point where we're advanced enough. Let's face it, hive control today in the Western world is, if I do something wrong, I'm going to go to prison and lose my freedom. Well, the fact of the matter is that actually, it's not that scares us. It's losing the money and the ability to be able to do the things that we want to do. And that's where the limits of control comes in under our current financial mechanism.
Interesting. If we avoid the conversation of emotional and relational disconnect that comes with the prison system as well, right? So if I lose money, I lose face, or I lose influence with people I care about. I think there's another layer to it. But before you and I continue this discussion, because we can talk at Shed Show Talk, I want to get back. Ed, do you have any comments before I do the roundtable discussion?
On no, well, I agree with Paul, actually. I think that money is
Paul really
the
liked that,
idea
by
of-
the way, so it's okay with me if you don't say that too often.
No, I think it's just a good example. If you were looking at a civilization for understanding, you know, the relationships between the individuals within it and the group dynamics, that there's no doubt that the exchange of energy is an important thing, and the exchange of energy, you know, is kind of synonymous with money. You're exchanging labor in order for resources, and it's just a binary system to accumulate something and then exchange it. But I totally agree on touching on the other thing that Paul said, and that's with the actual debt. In the US, I think it's like 20 trillion or something, but it's just all running away, and sooner or later the train is heading towards the cliff.
Yeah.
And if we don't have a way in order to continue after, you know, when all this collapses with finite resources, but also an attempt at infinite growth models, then you kind of sooner or later there is a stopping point. And you know, you wonder what will be the transition for humanity then. You know, what will happen to us, because we're all so intertwined with each other in economic terms that you know, who knows what will happen. Maybe we wish we had an AI at that point to solve all the problems, but I'm not even sure an AI could solve the problems then.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting. I mean, clearly, when the three of us get together, we're going to have infinite things to talk about, which might be a discussion in and of itself. But I like how you talked about an energy transfer, because that involves more than monetized currency. And I think when we talk about economics, like Paul touched on the idea of bartering and dollars in exchange for service, or various systems of economics. But when we talk about an energy transfer, that actually applies to many fields, and I'm going to tuck that away for a future conversation. So let's do the round table, and on this Shed Show Talk and Outer Dark collaboration, we do have a talk series. And guys, thank you for subscribing to both of our channels. We've got Shed Show Talk, Outer Dark, and Ed, of course, has 3 channels, so you can check out Outer Dark, Outer Light, and Esoteric Detective, and help support us humans while we still are running on currency, and hit the little notification bell.
Yeah, and if you really want to help support the cause that we're under, we all have Patreon pages as well.
Yeah. This just in, there's been changes to the algorithm, and they haven't been favorable to people like us.
Hey guys, by the way, money doesn't matter, so you can just head over there and give it to us.
Oh. Wow. Did you just exchange a cow for a chicken?
I think an egg.
An egg?
For a cow.
Well, oh my goodness. Anyhow, Ed is a little more humble in how he promotes himself, but let's be honest, until the system changes, money helps us, you know, grow the channels. At least that's true for Shed Show Talk. I think Ed is doing phenomenally well. We're the baby. We're the egg, he's the chicken.
Yep, there we go.
Oh.
Which came first?
Oh,
okay, carry on. Let's round table
Okay,
this.
round table. Oh, Ed, we're so glad you're here with us. You know, what are you thinking when you hear this banter over here across the pond, you know? What's it like for you being on the other side of Shed Show Talk?
Oh, that's great. I love being involved in the conversation and just listening to your guys' ideas.
Well, we like having you too. Okay, so the roundtable discussion is, as of today, are humans individual or hive? Ed, we'll start with you.
As of today, I think that we're individual, but I think we always forget that we are a species, you know, and that we are interconnected and related to each other heavily. in our social systems, you know, what we're afraid of or what we want, what we desire, and all these things, they make their way into society. So there are some hive aspects to us, definitely, although we're conscious on individual levels, but there's also, you know, there's more esoteric examples of how, you know, for instance, you know, often cited examples are of, if you're guessing, they did an experiment, I believe, although a number of people have tried to replicate it, but they say it's interesting. You guys are probably aware of when they were guessing the amount of pennies within a jar. On an individual level, people would, you know, guess all over the place. But when you took all the guesses of everyone guessing the pennies and got an average there, they actually got within a few pennies of the actual amount of pennies in the jar. So it's like so in a collective way, we can like see a more clarity of our reality. On an individual level, it's like from, you know, different perspectives, but as a collective, although we're isolated, we can, you know, obviously accomplish amazing things and see, you know, like the God particle and see kind of like advanced physics, but on an individual level. So I think there's an element of both. We're always going to be a species. We're always connected together as the human species, but we're driven in the current dominant philosophical concepts of, you know, our political structure is always to define people as individuals, but we are really connected as a species and connected as a species with our planet, our biosphere, but we never really seems, because we, you know, we're a classification species. We define each other. We categorize ourselves in libraries. So, but in essence, our knowledge is the entire library, not just the book.
I think YouTube is esoteric. Certainly, people that subscribe to your channel.
Oh, the esoteric detective. Nice plug, Paul. Nice plug. But he has a good point there. But if I were to ask the question again to you, Ed, are we individual or hive? The answer is both from what you said. Am I understanding you correctly?
I think that we are individuals, but I think that, you know, we are a species. Like, we're offsets of a species, so we're like one species made up of individual minds. Yeah. So I think it's really complicated. I guess if I had to answer a yes or no, I'd say yes, we're individuals.
Okay. Well, it's interesting because I asked you a binary question: are we this or are we that? And the answer was a hybrid type answer, and I think that might tie to our earlier episode that we just posted on human consciousness, that we are capable of exceeding binary type decisions. Okay, Paul, your turn. Are we individual or are we hive?
Wow, that's a great question. I mean, if you look back to before we came to be what we are today, when we were more humble mammals, the female would give off a scent.
That still happens.
And it does, but we just don't pick up on it. And the male would then give off a scent, and they would come together, and they would work as a collective to create further life. So we are individual in our making, but I believe I'm going to go right down the middle with this, but I believe that we are a collective by nature.
Interesting.
I think in order to create things, we've had to come to work together. Now, if you were going to go down the telepathic route, and there's just been documents released that the CIA actually delved right deep down into telepathy and really the sixth sense. And you look at it from that angle, I believe that the humans, as the Ferengi called us, that's my second Star Trek reference. I'm going to stop right there.
Yeah, nerd.
You know, as humans, I think that there's an ability that we can unlock which would make us more interdependent and more hive-like. And certainly the finances and so on and so forth have all helped create that for humanity. So we're hive almost by forcing ourselves to become hive, when it comes to, I'm going to pay you to do this or pay you to do that, we're Hive in those senses. But when it comes down to individual thoughts and actions, I can lift this pen off the table and drop it.
Oh, he just dropped my pen.
And you didn't have any sway over whether I did that or not. So that was an individual thought. So I'm going to go down the middle. I think we're predominantly individual. I agree with Ed. That we're predominantly individual, but I do think we have Hive tendencies.
Yes, I do like the mutual appreciation society developing between Paul and Ed, so I'm going to need some supporter feedback. But you know what? I'm going to play devil's advocate here just for the sake of discussion. I believe I'm going to do I'm not sure what I believe, so I'm just going to talk out loud and represent another point of view and see what happens. If we look from like... if we look at the concept that we are all star stuff, so the stuff made of stars, so carbon and the various atoms, we started as a hive. Through evolution, we developed individual capabilities. And since I don't believe everything's always linear, I believe more in spirals than I do straight lines, right? So more ancient Hebraic Sumerians were cyclical thinkers, whereas the Greeks and others that developed our society were very linear. I think that we developed individuality, but I don't believe that the evidence coming out of DNA and behavior analysis are indicating that we are as individualistic as we think. And I don't think a lot of the stuff coming out of brain science right now reveals us to be very individualistic. So I actually think we have a stronger hive nature with the moments of individuality. And the hope and belief that we're individual. But I don't think we actually know what drives us. I don't think we understand our own programming well enough. So we take credit for a lot of things that actually aren't that individual. So, you know, for example, our brains are computers that are driving our heart and our lungs and our creativity. But they've actually found that the decisions of your ancestors, there was one study I read, up to 500 years develops the DNA in your body. So your predisposition politically, religiously, emotionally was actually partially scripted by the DNA in your system. And as you make decisions, you continue to write, you know, the complexities of RNA and DNA. And this is not my field of expertise. I'm just conveying the studies that have been sent to me that I've been reading, that we are then writing and shaping what that looks like for the next generation if you do have children. And so when I think of us, I actually believe we have a hive origin with individual aspirations. But as we continue in time, I think we're cycling back, sort of that spiral. I think we're kind of coming back to the hive concept. And I think the idea of intuition, spirituality, paranormal, all that kind of stuff would be evidences of, even if they're pseudo evidences, of hive type thinking. So for example, I had a cousin on the other side of the planet have a dream, and I had the same dream at the same time on the other side of the planet. So combined, we did not communicate verbally before or after the event. We only found out about it because we both journaled it and talked about it several years later. But we had a conscious event that we both thought was individual, and it turns out we had it at the same time. So how does that function? Is that a quantum reality? Is that a spiritual reality? And how does that function? I don't know. But so I'm actually going to go with the hive answer, partially just to be devil's advocate, and let us know what you guys think. Are we individuals or are we hive? Ed, do you have anything you want to say as we wrap up this episode?
Well, yeah, I'd just like to add a little bit to that dream. That's kind of quite amazing, but you see similar things in twin studies, interestingly enough.
Yeah.
Whereas when I've got one twin exposed to, I don't know, a horror movie or scared or afraid, and then they've got the other twin isolated, that they will have those similar feelings and be able to describe them. There was a number of experiments, and they're repeatable. It's something really unexplainable, you know, with twin studies. Also, something I did myself, just to add a little, little addition before we go, and that's the rice experiment, which I actually performed myself at home and was very surprised about the results. Basically, if you don't know what that is, you basically cook some rice, then obviously you disinfect a bunch of bottles. You can even put a control group of bottles. You fill them up with rice. So rice has got water in it. It's related to consciousness within water. And then you'll put like names on each bottle. You put like love on one bottle, hate on another bottle, and then you get your control sample. And if you look at one bottle and you send negative energy to that each day, and then you look at the other bottle that has love on it and you send positive energy to that, it's amazing to see the difference in the way that the rice degrades. Because after 2 weeks, I found what a lot of people found was that the one that had hate on it degraded and went all moldy, while the one that had love on it was almost pristine in condition. Now, of course, you'd have to repeat it a number of times, as people have done on the internet, but I did that myself and I got the same results, and always found that very interesting, because I had a control sample as well, and I had them in the same location so they'd all get the similar amount of sunlight. And I looked at it, you know, when the, you know, on a level I wanted to perform it as most as I could without taking it to a laboratory.
I love that study, and you know, I've heard so many studies like it where sometimes they'll use intentional thought. I read another one where they left them in a sealed room just with the word itself written, and they tried different languages and they confirmed the results you're talking about with the rice experiment. And they also found that the way they spoke changed how water formed and turned into ice. It's different states between solid, liquid, and gas. But again, you know, from the people who believe in a supernatural world, they'll say, well, of course, because consciousness precedes the physical format, and we actually share a hive outside of a physical format. The physical format is the most temporary format of our existence. So, but that's a whole rabbit hole for another conversation.
I'm going to go to the florist tomorrow and buy some flowers.
Okay.
And I'm going to try it with some flowers.
Okay. Does the rice experiment, should we try the rice experiment too?
Why not? Absolutely.
Okay, so if you guys do the rice experiment at home, how long did you do the experiment for, Ed?
But yeah, totally. Look, I really look forward to that rice experiment that you guys perform, see what results you guys get.
Sure. How long did you do your rice experiment for? Uh-oh.
Yeah, sorry, it went out again. Again, guys, it's starting to go usually. I don't know why.
It's starting to go because I think somebody fiddled with the internet.
No, I did nothing. Yeah. I did nothing. It was not me. I didn't touch it. I swear.
The last time it crashed is when you opened another tab.
All I was thinking then was love. I love Beth and I love Ed because I want you guys to last forever. How about that?
Oh, yeah. That's a nice save. I'll take it. But you know what? There is a lot of love for us here. There's a lot of love for Ed, and there's a lot of love for what we're trying to create with our conversation, our YouTube channels. So we welcome that love back to us. And you know, I think that we've seen in all our audiences a lot of love amongst our people, and I'm a firm believer there's more love out there than people really recognize. And so send your love our way. How long should we do the rice experiment for, Ed?
I would look it up. I did mine, I think it was 3 weeks. I did it in 2009, so it was a while ago now. But have a look at it. I think if you go for about 3 weeks, I think you're doing all right. But I'm unsure exact time period you should aim for. And
did you make a video of that, Ed?
No, I've never made a video of that. I've mentioned it in my videos, but I've never. This was far before I was on YouTube. It was 2009, maybe somewhere around then. So
yeah, before you were a celebrity. Well, could we challenge you? Could we each do a rice video and maybe post something to our channels in a couple weeks?
Yeah, sure. I'd be up for that if you guys wanted to do it.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that offline. And everyone, thank you for checking out our channel. Remember to share this to your social media and to other people and keep the conversation going. Use the hashtag SHT. And check out Outer Dark. And I want to thank Ed for picking up this call from across the pond. Next time we meet in this talk series, Ed, we're going to look at the question, what will happen to humanity when we merge with machines, AI, or even aliens? How will that change our identity?
Awesome. Looking forward to that one.
All right.
Great. Thanks, Ed, for joining us. It's always an amazing conversation.
Yeah.
And that is a wrap from me, Paul, giving everybody love.
Yeah, and from me, Beth, giving everyone love.
From Shed Show Talk and Outer Dark and Outer Light.
And Inner Light, oh no wait, Esoteric Detective.
There we go.
There we go. Ed, do you want to close us out this time?
Well, I just want to say thank you guys for having me on the program, and of course, much love to the audience and to you guys as well.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay, see you guys.
Thanks,
All
Ed.
right, bye.
Bye.